I hate intros, so let's just get into this. I wanted to document my journey as a pilot throughout training. Training is really hard, and so I wanted to take an opportunity to make more long-form content to hopefully connect maybe with my audience, to give you guys a little hope in the industry, to let you guys know, hey, this stuff is really hard, and we're going to be able to get through it. So yesterday, I did my first discovery flight, and I wanted to document my journey of when I started aviation all the way to this first milestone, because it's a really big milestone for me. It took 5 months after I got my CFI to be able to get my first flight that somebody else paid for my time. And so maybe a few of you guys can relate. Maybe people are having a hard time. You're not alone. And I think my journey is uniquely difficult, and I wanted to share it. I wanted to document it. And this video is going to be way longer than I planned. I am 21 years old, junior in college. I know that I don't want to do my degree. My degree was in mechanical engineering technologies, which is essentially computer drafting, if any of you guys know what that is, or if you've ever heard of like 3D printers, it's the models or the software you use to design things that go into 3D printers, along with all kinds of different industrial applications. But long story short there, I wasn't good at it. I didn't like it. And it wasn't going to make me the money, or give me the career that I wanted to have. So on top of all that, to put the icing on the cake, my girlfriend at the time's father was one of the top engineers for the state of Washington. And he more or less just said I wasn't good enough. And that hurt. That hurt a lot. He said my career wasn't going to be good enough, that I wasn't going to be successful. And that just kind of spiraled me into this pit of guilt and anger and frustration and humility, I guess, is the best word for that. And so I started looking for another career. It was something I didn't want to do anyway, so let's go do something else that I do want to do. And the two big top contenders in my life was either one, be a pilot. Well, it wasn't quite be a pilot yet. I'll get there. Or two, be a firefighter. In order to be a firefighter, I'd have to go back to school for 2 years, join a fire force, work up my whole life, to get to a point where I could make, at least enough money to be successful in life. Additionally, firefighters kind of die of cancer between 50, 60, sometimes 70. So the life expectancy of a firefighter is just a lot lower. And so it wasn't the top of my priority list, but I had one other option. That previous summer, my sister's boyfriend was an air traffic controlman. He told me over the summer that I'd be a great air traffic controlman. He said I have the personality for it. I love to talk. I love to communicate. And, I was pretty good in stressful environments. So I end up calling him up. My sister's not even dating this dude at that point. And I call him up and I go, hey, what's the deal with air traffic controlman? What does that life look like? How could I do it? He essentially gave me two options. One, join the military and do it that way. And that's how most people become air traffic controlmen. Or two, qualify and go to a school. That school would take about 2 years of training. You have to start from the bottom. You're probably going to end up being an air traffic controlman in some rural area that you don't want to be in the first place, and work your way up to better salaries. I said, okay, cool. He said, the other option you could do is become a pilot. And I said, what's that life like? He said, well, essentially, they're just kind of bus drivers. They don't necessarily do a lot. The flight that he got to sit in on, the pilots just took off, hung out up in the air, and then landed. And I said, oh, okay, well, that's not that big of a deal. I said, how much do they make? And they said, well, they make more than us. And I said, cool, what's their schedule like? And he goes, as far as I know, they kind of work, off and on 4 or 5 days a week. And I said, oh, sweet. So I started looking into more pilot salaries, what their schedule's like, what life is like. Can you have like a family and still be a pilot? Is there a work-life balance? And I was super interested. So I started trying to ask around about aviation. Well, it just so happened that my teacher in engineering was also a pilot. He was just a private pilot. And so he started talking to me about pilot things, started telling me how long it took him to get his private pilot. It was 4 years. He told me that his dad was a pilot and that's why he became a pilot. He said, yeah, I would highly encourage you to go into that career if that's what you want to do. he goes and, telling me everything that he knows about the career. He already knew at this point that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I kind of had expressed that, hey, how could I do this? Could I buy my own plane? Is it cheaper that way? And so I started looking into flying. I started practicing for my private pilot's written test. Like 3 months before I ever even stepped into a plane, I was taking courses on the written test. So when I was learning like the gauges and the maps and the airspeeds and stuff, I actually didn't have any correlation. This was all brand new information to me, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I paid $200 for MikeAlpha.com's private pilot course. It's decent. I wouldn't recommend it, but it got me through, and I didn't know anything. So started studying, started doing that stuff. I am preparing for my final for my engineering degree. And I kept on proposing all these ideas for projects that I could work on with my teacher. He didn't like any of them. They were all like weird, and like I wanted to design a skateboard. I wanted to design like a bearing for like a longboard. I wanted to do like a collapsible longboard, or a couple of other pieces where like I wanted to make models for like board games, things like that. And he was like, this is not applicable to our career, so he wouldn't let me do it. I'm like, okay, well, I kept on trying and trying and trying. And he goes, you know what, Cody, are you going to do this as a profession at all? And I go, no. He goes, you're already lined up to go get a job at an FBO. Why don't you just take our final off? I'll give you like a C on the final, and you can go and do aviation stuff and stop trying to worry about all this engineering things. And so that's what I did. He was nice enough to me to give me 3 weeks off of my degree, last 3 weeks of college, and I went straight into getting a job at a local FBO. And that same week that I stopped flying or that same week that I stopped going to college is the same week that I passed my private pilot written. I got a 73. It wasn't much, but it took me 3 months to study, and it was a lot of pressure, and I was doing it on top of finding a job, switching careers, and finishing college. So that was a big moment for me. I cried. It was so much relief off my shoulders, and it was also the first evidence that maybe I could actually do this career in the first place. So after that, I get with the FBO and I start asking about where flight instructors are. They recommended me a few different people. I made some phone calls and I started flight training. My first flight instructor was this old, like 60-something-year-old man, and his name was Bob, and he was hard to learn from. And I didn't know what I was doing, so I was very timid. Bob was the kind of guy that if you didn't follow his instructions, he would get louder and more aggressive. And that was difficult for me, especially when he wasn't using technical terms. Instead of saying turn to the left, he would say things like wing, more wing, you need more wing. And so they were like niche or slang type aviation terms, and that was very hard for me to learn from. So after flying for about 5 hours with Bob, I decided to switch to a different instructor. His name was Levi. Levi was a fresh Embry-Riddle student, now instructor. I think I was definitely within his first 3 students. I might have even been his first student. I'm not sure. And Levi was great. He was way more technical. He taught me a lot more about graphs, how the plane works, how the plane flies. But I wanted to progress quickly, so I was really pushing him and spending all of my money. At the FBO, I was making like $16 an hour. I probably made like $2,000 a month, and I spent $1,200 of that a month flying planes. So, I was just spending all of my money flying planes. And then Levi decided that he wanted to go on vacation during the summer, so he was gone for like a week, and I didn't want to delay my training. So I went back to Bob, and I started training with Bob. And all that happened at the same time as our local air traffic control woman, the leader of like our sector. She had a plane in her family. It was her family plane passed down from her dad. So she said, hey, you can use this if you get the annual, you take care of it, and you make it like flyable and take good care of this thing. So I said, okay, cool. So I get insurance, I pay for the annual for this aircraft, but she'll only let me fly with Bob. So I can't go back to Levi at this point. So I start flying with Bob again. Well, we fly the plane for the first time and the airspeed indicator doesn't work. Now, for all of you that know about aircraft, that's required. So I'm like 13 hours into flying planes and I land an aircraft for the first time without an airspeed indicator. It was a 150. So if you know anything about 150s, me and who's 200 pounds and a 150 pound guy are stuffed in this tiny little plane. And they fall fast, and we don't have an airspeed indicator, so we're just flying with vibes. It was fun. I I definitely enjoyed it, but it was a little scary. So we take it back to the shop. They can't get the airspeed indicator fixed for very cheap, so then I pay like I think another $1,000 to get the airspeed indicator fixed. So now I'm like almost $3,000 into this plane, and I've flown it once. Well, long story short there, my girlfriend, that her dad didn't approve of me, we ended up breaking up and then getting back together at the end of that summer, about the same time that I was fixing up this plane. So I couldn't fly the plane to Spokane where she was living, and I ended up moving to Spokane. So I sunk almost $3,000 into this plane and never really even got to fly it. I start flying in Spokane, Washington at this point. Now I had gotten a better job at Amazon for $20 an hour. So now I'm making like, I think close to $3,000 a month, but I'm spending $2,000 on flying. I finish, I don't know, I think I get probably close to 150 hours in Spokane. I did my first, second, third solo. I did my solo cross country back to Lewiston, which is where I started my flight training. And on the day of my solo cross country, she breaks up with me for the second time. And so I'm just done at this point. I don't want to be in this relationship. I'm trying to fly. I don't want to be anywhere near this lady. So I moved back home. I moved to southern Idaho from Spokane, Washington. I packed up all of my stuff and drove 13 hours that day. The day of my solo cross country, the day of my breakup. And I go back home. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what the future holds for me. So next day I start making phone calls. I had previously called ATP when I first started flying, and they had told me, hey, there's a 3-month wait list. And so I said, okay, cool. I'll go get my private pilot in that time so that when I get to ATP, it'll cost less money, it'll be a little faster, and I'll have a higher chance of getting priority on the wait list. So that was back in May in Lewiston. It took me 15 months to get my private pilot's license. And I couldn't go to ATP once I started training because they said you either have to finish your private pilot's license or start from zero, which is just more money and a big giant waste. So I was like, fine. So the whole time I'm getting my private pilot's license, I'm going, oh, I just have a couple more months and then I'll pass. I'll just have a couple more months and then I'll pass. Well, it took me 15 months. Jumping back to Glens Ferry, I made another call to ATP just to make sure, hey, what's your guys' wait list? What's this like? They had no wait list. And I'm going, shit, but I'm not ready. And I go, hey, can I come train with you guys? They go, no, you have to pass your private pilot. At this point, you're way too far into training. We have a couple of programs you might be able to qualify for, but you're just wasting a bunch of time if you do that. I go, okay. When I first looked into flying, the airlines were giving out sign-on bonuses and tuition reimbursement bonuses. So if you signed on with the airlines, you could get a $20,000 bonus, and you could even qualify for, I think, $40,000 in tuition reimbursement. And this is a year later from that time period. So the airlines aren't even giving bonuses anymore. So I start making calls trying to see if I can get a flight instructor down in southern Idaho. And I find one in Boise, and I start flying with him. I get checked out. I get ready to solo. I fly with their chief flight instructor. And I even ask them about, hey, what are your guys' DPEs like? And they go, we'll make some calls, but the DPEs around here, you're waiting about 3 months. And I go, what? So my flight instructor makes some calls to all the DPs in the area. There's only 3. 2 of them don't answer, and 1 of them says it's a 3-month wait list. I go, I can't wait 3 months. So I end up calling back to my original flight school in Spokane and go, hey, I know you guys have a dedicated DPE. If I came and took my check ride with you guys, could I get on his wait list? And they go, yes. I go, sweet. So we get a tentative date planned for like June 25th or something like that. And it's the beginning of May. I go, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive up to Spokane, stay at my buddy's house in Lewiston, do training in Spokane for a week, and then qualify for my check ride, come back up, finish any check ride prep we need, and then go take a check ride. So my plan is to go to Spokane twice, once to do training and once to get ready for my check ride. So I go to Lewiston, spend a week with my buddy, driving from Lewiston to Spokane, which is a 2-hour drive every single day, training for 6 to 8 hours, coming back home. Well, I'm sitting down to do a ground at the end of our first training week, and my flight instructor's asking all these questions, and he's going, hey, what's this acronym? What's that acronym? And I don't really know. My ground knowledge isn't where it needs to be. I thought it was this whole time. I thought I was okay. I thought I knew enough. And he goes, no, you don't, you're not going to be able to qualify for a check ride. And I go, phew. So I go, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to study my ass off. And then we're just going to have a phone call conversation. If you don't think that I'm ready to take a check ride, we'll reschedule it at that point. So I go home. I have like 4 days to study as much as I can. So I pull out the airplane flying handbook. I pull out the, not the airplane flying handbook, the pilot's handbook of aeronautical knowledge, and I read it and I study it and I write down notes and flashcards, and I had like 30 pages of notes, and I would go on runs and walks and go work out and listen to the book, and then I'd study more flashcards, and I did that for like 16 hours a day for like 4 days straight. And I sat outside. I remember sitting outside and just studying and going through the book and highlighting and taking notes and writing flashcards and then going on walks and listening to the book. And my flight instructor calls me. We have a little conversation. And he goes, look, your knowledge is so much better, but I still don't think you're ready. I go, damn. So I go, what should we do? He goes, look, we're going to reschedule your check ride. You're going to come back up to Spokane for a second time. We're going to do some flying. We're going to do some more grounds. You're going to study and make sure all your stuff is good. And you're going to study, make sure all your stuff is good. And then we're going to do it again. I said, okay. So I go up to Spokane. This is like a 3-day trip this time. We fly again, make sure all that's current, make sure my ground knowledge is up to date. And we just leave a couple of like last minute things for like our check ride week. But my flight instructor's feeling a lot more confident. I go back home and still studying, still keeping up on my knowledge, now just waiting on a check ride date. Now the DP apparently gets pretty busy and goes, hey, I think I have a date on August or July 5th. And we go, okay. July 5th rolls around. I don't hear from him. July 6th rolls around and he goes, I'll probably have a date for like July 15th, July 20th. I'll let you know. July 15th, July 20th rolls around. He doesn't say anything. So I call him back up and he goes, I have a guaranteed date, August 14th. Be here August 14th. And I go, okay, now we finally have a set date after rescheduling 4 different times. So on our 5th attempt, we finally have a date. August, 8th rolls around or so. I go up to Spokane and we get check ride prepping. So how this check ride prep worked is I would drive from Lewiston to Spokane because I'm still staying at my buddy's. 2-hour drive, usually about 4 or 5 in the morning. Get there 7, 8 in the morning. Really just depends. Start flying. Then we'd have a ground, or then I would be left to my own devices for studying, and then we'd have a ground, then I'd go home. And we did that every single day for about a week. And I finally get to go to my check ride. After a week of driving 4 hours a day, flying 2 hours a day, studying 6 hours a day, check ride date comes. Do my check ride. The oral goes amazing. It was like 4.5 hours. So if any of you guys are expecting how long your private pilot oral is going to be, it's usually anywhere from 2 hours to 6 hours. Mine was 4.5. Very rarely is it ever going to be 6 hours because the DP doesn't want to do it that for 6 hours, but mine was 4.5. We go out, we fly. At this point, it's actually getting dark. So we do the cross country, we do all of the maneuvers, we do VOR navigations, we do all the emergencies. So all we have left is to come back and land. And at this point, it's too dark. And I call it, and I let my DP know. I'll go, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing the rest of this check ride in the dark. I'm going to go ahead and defer, or whatever that term is. I can't think of it off the top of my head, and come back another day. He goes, okay, cool. But as you guys might know, when you defer a check ride, you're on priority for your DPE. So he doesn't even give me a date when I'm at the check ride. He goes, hey, let me look at my schedule and I'll get back to you. Well, we already know from before that that's a bad thing with this guy. So I only have landings to do. And I go back to Lewiston and I sit and I wait. And a couple of days go by and I give him a text, no answer. A couple more days go by, I give him a text, still no answer. So the next day I give him a call. Still no answer, but at least he has a voicemail. He finally gets back to me about a week and a half later and goes, hey, let's do it on Monday. So now I have 4 days for 3 landings. He calls me up the day before finishing the check ride and goes, can we do our check ride at 6 in the morning tomorrow? It's 11 o'clock at night. I wake up, I text him back, I go, yes, I'll see you at 6 in the morning tomorrow. So in order to make a flight at 6 in the morning in Spokane, Washington, I had to wake up at 3:30. He'd already texted me at 11. So I'm finishing my check ride with about 4 hours of sleep. Drive 2 hours to Spokane, Washington, finish my check ride. My landings were absolutely atrocious, but he gives me grace because he knew that, 1, I hadn't flown in the last 2 weeks because of how long it took him to get back to me. 2, I'd done so good on my check ride leading up to this last piece. And 3, why is he going to make me come back for a 3rd time after I failed, even though my landings weren't the best? So he passes me. We talk. I tell him I'm going to ATP. He goes, hey, just be careful. They're a company that wants your money, not necessarily want you to be a good pilot. In fact, I don't even do check rides for ATP because I just don't think what they do is ethical. And I go, okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. At this point, I don't really have a choice. So go back to Lewiston and go, hey, I passed my check ride. I'm going home. Drive the 6 or so hours to back home and start getting ready for ATP. I actually called ATP on the way home and got a check ride date, or a class date. So my first date going to ATP, they put me in classes leading up to my first day. So you have to take classes that are kind of like your ground knowledge and your orientation for the program. Do those, get ready to go to ATP. My dad made, I think it was pork chops the day before I left. And so the next morning, I actually have food poisoning all the way from Glens Ferry, Idaho to Ogden, Utah. I had to stop 5 times. And now I'm staying in an Airbnb, which is the basement of some guy's house, with food poisoning 2 days before I start flight training. Don't know anybody, in a completely new state. But I survived the weekend, start my class date with ATP. I started instrument training, and I have one of the coolest instructors I've ever had. His name's Kyle. Kyle's amazing. Kyle's in the airlines now, so shout out to Kyle. I still love him to this day. And he starts teaching me instrument training, and it's great. Everything goes very smoothly. And my instrument check ride date comes, and I do my instrument check ride. I realize I don't really know as much as I thought I did. I wasn't really prepared for my instrument check ride, and I'm a little bit over my head. Now, the DP was uniquely hard. Everybody knew it, and uniquely mean. He passed me through my oral. We get out into the plane, passes me through most of my flight, but he's doing things that, one, ATP doesn't like, two, was unnecessary for this DP, and three, maneuvers and going places that this DP had never previously gone when he was a DP for ATP. So it was new. He was doing new tactics, doing things kind of against our policy, which, if you know anything about like DPs and what they are and aren't allowed to do, you know, policy only goes so far. They can kind of do whatever they want. But we end up going to 2 different airports to do approaches on our instruments, making my check ride, instead of like an easy hour and a half check ride, to closer to like a 2.5 hour check ride. And that's fine. And I pass and I do all my approaches correctly. I do all my misses correctly. There was some confusion with traffic and terminology and things like that in the check ride, but nothing egregious. Well, he kind of pulls a slick move and asks me to get a binder out of the back of the plane. I go, okay, cool. So I get a binder out of the back of the plane. We were supposed to log a VOR, a dual VOR check. And so I open up this binder to log this dual VOR check. I don't even know why he wants me to do this mid-flight. It seems wild to me. And he puts me in an unusual attitude. I don't correct for it appropriately because I was completely distracted, completely thrown off. And honestly, I thought it was a shady tactic. It felt like a cheap failure. So he immediately goes, nope, you did it wrong. You failed. Let's go back. Okay, well, at that point, there's nothing you can do. But there is a silver lining. I was about 2.5 hours late to a date with a girl that I had planned. We were supposed to go to a Jazz basketball game, and that didn't happen. So to make it up for her, I decided to drive all the way down to where she was and take her out to food. It's like 8:30 at this point. And we go to this Mexican restaurant. It's barely open. And we have a terrible, terrible first date. But somehow, through all of the terribleness, I pushed through, and she kind of gave me a good chance. And we're still dating today, a year and a half later. And that's going to play into the rest of the story when we get there. But I'm still dating her. She's in medical school. We live in St. George, Utah. So a little spoiler alert, but we'll get there. So I fail my instrument, go back, do all the retraining you have to do when you fail a check ride, and get another instrument check ride date. This time we have like 3 things we have to do. He's so much easier, still kind of an ass, but easier, and I pass my instrument. Now I'm an instrument rated pilot and my first certification with ATP. Next, I do some multi-flying, which was really fun and a story for another day, and then into commercial. Commercial was great. I had an instructor I didn't really like at first, but I asked to switch, and I got my original instructor again. His name's Kyle. Kyle's awesome. I still love Kyle, so I got him for instrument and commercial. Life is good. Take my instrument or my commercial check ride. The DP is super awesome. He is a DPE not only for like flight schools like ATP, but he also does check rides for F-16s. He used to be an F-16 fighter pilot, then an F-16 experimental pilot. So that was really cool. This dude was awesome. He was teaching me physics that I didn't even think about, and passed my commercial. But if you know anything about the commercial check ride, you have to do certain performance landings. One of those is a power off 180. Well, I decided, because my DP was kind of an easier, nicer going guy, that even though it was windy, I'm still going to take my check ride. I took my check ride, in 19 gusting 25. So when I did my power off 180, I was beelined at a 45-degree angle to the edge of the runway. So once I cut power, it was immediately 45-degree turn to the edge of the runway because this headwind was insane. We are 15 feet above the numbers, and my landing point was the third stripe. We're 15 feet above the numbers. I'm still completely clean on flaps. So to compensate for this, I dump flaps. We balloon up like 50 feet and coast straight onto that third line. An absolute miracle. I turn to our DP and go, holy shit, I can't believe that worked. He just goes, keep on going. So, fun little story on my commercial. But yeah, instrument or private was a dumpster fire. Instrument, I failed for damn near no reason. Commercial, I'm taking my commercial check ride in 20 knots, gusting 25. So, safe to say, my check rides they're not fun. Everything is a dumpster fire story with crazy factors. I start training for my multi at this point. Train for my multi. ATP gives me a week. They go, hey, do it in 5 days. And I go, what? They go, we have a check ride on Friday. We want you to take it. I go, okay. So I studied my ass off for a week, flying, studying, doing everything I can, all of the knowledge possible to do my multi check ride. Get into my multi check ride, and lo and behold, my knowledge isn't where it should be. And I failed on the ground. I didn't even get into the plane. I failed my knowledge. I just couldn't quite do it. Now, to be fair, this DP asked some questions that he's not known to be asking, and I think it's because he sensed my knowledge wasn't where it should be. And he even asked some questions that I just flat out didn't even prepare for. For instance, how the engine system works when we change the pitch of the propeller. What mechanisms react to each other that then enacts what levers to open, and then how the pitch ends up getting changed. It was a really complicated question, but I was completely prepared for it the second time around. Answered this question, no problem, went and flew, had no problems, was very, very nervous because the DP is kind of aggressive. A sweetheart of a guy, but just kind of those rough, gruff, stoic types. And so it freaked me the hell out. And I almost failed again because I didn't do a full stop go around. So if any of you guys know about your multi check rides, but a lot of the time because of runway lengths, you have to do full stop go arounds instead of just a full touch and go. I don't know if there was any other factors for the reason why we were doing full stop taxi backs. I don't know if there's any other factors why we were doing full stop taxi backs for your multi, but I almost didn't do it. I almost just did a go or a touch and go instead of a full stop taxi back, which would have made me fail. But long story short there, passed my multi, and now it's time to go into CFI. Well, when I get into the CFI program, they let us know that, hey, our chief flight instructor's pass rate is like 82%. It's dangerously close to dropping below 80%. If his pass rate drops below 80%, he can't be a chief flight instructor anymore. And so they start getting really, really strict. They also have this backlog of students because they couldn't get enough DPEs at the time to get check rides going. So they're dealing with all these problems where they have way too much students, not enough resources, and the pass rate is dropping, so they're getting stricter on who is going to be able to pass their check rides. So they bring on two other, I don't even know how they got away with it, but two other 2-year pilots to start doing like our mock orals and getting us vetted so that we can pass our check rides. I don't even think they could sign us off to go on our check ride. I think only the chief flight instructor could. So we do all of our training. It goes pretty decent. I didn't have my lesson plans prepped correctly. So for all of you out there that are going into a CFI program, have everything about your lesson plans completed prior to getting into the program. I thought I did. I had another CFI's lesson plans, And I thought that was going to be good enough for me. And hey, yeah, I'll just change some stuff here, some stuff there to put it in my own words. Well, little did I know, she was just a genius, I guess. And all of her lesson plans were just very simple bullet points with no context, no additional information. And she just kind of memorized everything that she needed to know. That wasn't how I rolled. I needed detailed explanation, every single example, every single equation that I could go back and refer to if I needed it. So my lesson plans were not where they needed to be. I ended up adding an extra 70 pages to her lesson plans just from elaborating and giving an additional information to all of the tasks that needed to be talked about. If any of you guys want my lesson plans, feel free to sell them for $100. It's 250 pages of probably the most detailed lesson plans I've ever seen, as well as about 4 different people have those lesson plans and have given me feedback, and we've made alterations and even added information to these lesson plans. So if anybody wants like an all-inclusive lesson plan pack, reach out to me. Sell them to you for $100. But they're not where they needed to be. And I spent almost all of my time in the CFI program fixing my lesson plans, going through the books, making sure that I know all of the information I need to know. And our mock orals come around. So before we ever do a mock flight, we do a mock oral. Our mock oral comes around, and me and 2 other guys from my group, we have groups of 4, all have this one singular flight instructor. And I failed my first mock oral, and both those other guys also failed the same mock oral. And so we take his criticism, we go and practice, we go and work on our lesson plans, and he's giving us a second shot. So he gives us a second shot. We take all of his criticism, we do exactly what he says we should say and all of these things. And it still wasn't good enough. He goes, nope, you still don't know enough. You know all the information, but you have no application knowledge. And I go, okay. Seems weird. I was pretty upset, but okay. He goes, I don't know what's going to happen. You'll probably get a third chance, but at this point, I'll have to talk to our regional manager about what to do with you guys. And I go, okay, fine. During this time, I'm still under the impression that I'm going to have a third chance. So I still am studying, double downing, reading everything I can, rehearsing everything I can, writing whole lesson plans on the whiteboard. And now I'm going and watching other people do mock orals with different flight instructors. So I watch one guy do a mock oral, and they were doing runway incursions. And this guy didn't talk about items that I would have just simply been failed on if I did runway incursions. They were items that I did get failed on, and he didn't even bring them up, which were required tasks per the ACS. So I left that mock oral and cried because I felt like I was getting an unfair shot. This guy was easily passing his mock oral and he didn't even bring up required information that I was failed on for bringing it up and just not talking about it in the right way. So a couple days later pass, they bring us into the office and they go, yeah, we're going to kick you out of the program. They go, we gave you 2 chances. You're not keeping pace. We're going to move on without you. Awesome. So $115,000 later and 6 months of training, I don't even get my CFI license. So now I have damn near no way of making money and not really any way of fixing it. My only way that I thought that I could succeed is to move forward, but I didn't have any money. It just so happened that they kicked me out on the same day that my rent was due, but I didn't get my loan payment. So I got cost of living loan payments on the 10th. So I had to pay rent down $1,000 without that reimbursement from my cost of living loan payment, which essentially brought my savings account from $3,000 to $2,000. And I didn't have enough money to fly with anybody else. And so I just start looking for a job. I DoorDash as much as I can full-time and start looking for jobs. I can't get anyone to call me back. Little did I know I was just bad at applying for jobs. I should have applied through Indeed, but I wasn't. I was applying organically. I was applying to places like Home Depot, Walmart, Costco, and just nobody responded. And so for 2 months, I did DoorDash full-time and barely made enough money. My girlfriend finally gave me a job opportunity with her work as a security guard. So I call them up, I qualify for the job. They go, hey, we're not going to be able to start training you until the end of the month. So now I have to DoorDash for another month before I can even start this job. Do my training, don't even finish my training when my girlfriend gets accepted into medical school here in St. George. So now I'm looking for a job in St. George, and then I have to move about a month early to St. George. I start working at a countertop place. We get an apartment here in St. George. She comes down a month later, starts going to school. I work for this countertop place for about another month before I get fired. Another guy tried to fight me. He also accused me of saying racial slurs. I didn't say it, for the record. I did not say that. But I did get fired for that accusation and for essentially instigating a fight. I don't see it that way. Doesn't matter. We could totally just write it off as, hey, probably not in the greatest place in my life, which I wasn't. I get hired with another countertop company, and then I start CFI training. There's an amazing flight school here in St. George. If any of you guys are in St. George, I highly recommend them. They're called Sandstone. And I start getting my CFI training with them. And this flight instructor is actually a ATP alumni, and 2 of his students were washout, dropout ATP guys just like me. So it was kind of a theme. He was the collector of lost ATP pilots. So I finished my training with him, and we get a check ride on the books. I call up a bunch of DPEs in my area and find a guy out of North Las Vegas that'll do my check ride. Seems like a nice guy, but North Las Vegas is a new airspace. I'll have to fly to Vegas to do this check ride. I've never met this guy and I don't know anything about him. So, safe to say I'm very nervous about this whole journey. And 2 days before our check ride, he calls me up and goes, hey, I'm going to have to reschedule. Can you reschedule for, at this point, it's in December. So he goes, can you reschedule to like December 20th? And I go, sure, yeah. But I go back to my flight instructor and go, hey, do you have any other DPEs that might be able to do a flight for me? He goes, yes, I have this guy. Let me call him, because when you called him, he didn't answer. So let me call him because I know him personally. And I go, okay, cool. So we get a flight on the books, and now this new DPE will fly in St. George in the airspace that I'm familiar with the plane that I'm familiar with, and I don't have to fly 2 hours just to go do my check ride. So take my check ride with him, and everything's smoothly. I mean, it was like a 2-hour oral. It was like an hour-and-a-half flight. Honestly, probably the easiest check ride I've ever had, especially after the dumpster fire that was my first 4 check rides. My 5th check ride was smooth, easy, fun, actually. And the dude was so nice, and I can't say enough good things about that DPE. So now I'm a CFI. Now what? I start an Instagram channel, and I start making educational videos. I put together a resume, and I give it to every single flight school in the area. I personally either slip it under their door or hand it to them and go, hey, my name's Cody. The only exception to that was there was one place where the flight school, it wasn't open, the airport's locked, and I have no way of contacting anybody at the airport. But after talking to people in the area, they go, yeah, that airport's full. They don't take any more students anyways. They really don't let anybody fly. There's like 20 flight instructors out of this non-towered, no-name airport. I go, okay. So I don't even try with them, because what's the point? And then I kind of just wait, and nothing happens. Nobody gets back to me. 2 people said, yeah, I'll let you know if we have an opening. Still to this day, there's no opening. So I go, okay, fine. I put out a Facebook ad. I start printing off business cards. I'm working at FedEx at this point, and I'm putting business cards under my boxes and leaving them on people's porches. And I get a couple of calls from that. A couple of people who might want to start some flight training, but nothing crazy. And no confirmed flying has happened yet. And I'm pretty distraught at this point. I don't know what to do. I joined Civil Air Patrol. Hopefully they can get me some hours. Maybe I can get into the industry a little bit. Civil Air Patrol, for anybody who's wondering, is a great opportunity, but it is a ton of work, all for free. I'm already working a full-time job, also trying to flight train, also making Instagram videos. I still to this day don't have all of the time in the world to be on Civil Air Patrol. But I'm still part of that program, and hopefully soon I'll be flying with them too. So fast forward a couple more months of handing out business cards, at least trying to have Facebook ads. They're not working amazing. I get a new job as a social media manager at a moving company. And that's amazing. Get my first check with them and go, you know what? What if I do a flash sale? I'm going to put a bunch of money into this Facebook ad, and I'm going to go, hey, for a limited time only, I have 2 spots available. Respond to this ad, you'll get $20 off your first flight, and then I'll have flight students. And one guy responded. He said, hey, I have my kid. He wants to start flight training. He's 17 years old. He wants to have a career in this, but he wants to get his private before he graduates high school. I go, awesome. We set up a discovery flight, and yesterday was our first flight, and it was great. He's still shopping around for different flight schools and probably will start flight training in May. Cross your fingers, I'll be one of his instructors or his instructor. But that was a huge milestone. It took me 5 months of being a CFI before I got my first flight where somebody else paid for it. It's great progress, and I wanted to document that. And I also just wanted to share my journey because I think it was crazy. And hopefully there's people who can relate. Hopefully there's people who are struggling to get through their career and can find some motivation in my story. And hopefully you guys don't feel alone and alienated when you realize that, hey, yeah, aviation's way harder than I thought it was. My journey was a dumpster fire. I thought I was going to get my private in 3 months, go to ATP, get on the airlines within a year and a half. And when I started my journey, I probably could have done that. But it was all of the delays, all of the setbacks, everything just made everything harder and harder and harder. And today I'm sitting here, the airlines barely are hiring. You'll be lucky if you get hired with 2,000 hours and a college degree. I don't have either of those. I'm struggling to get one student. So it is hard. And I want to keep on updating on this channel, in life, and all of my progress with you guys because I want to document this journey and I want to help whoever is also struggling. So, all that to be said, follow for my journey to connect more with you guys, and I'll be posting more educational content. This same new username, I also have an Instagram page where I post a lot more on my Instagram than I do on my YouTube. So go follow All Terrain Animals on Instagram. And I'll probably see you guys next week.